Hello, my darling. Um, Welcome to my bed. We're doing things a little bit different today. My desk is a mess, and it's not a very conducive space really for readings. Nothing beats my old tarot altar, which I had I had to switch rooms in my house, and I had to give up that altar. So um, I'm actually moving in with my boyfriend soon, maybe next month, if not September at the latest. But my goal is to have my little tarot sanctuary back. So yeah, future readings you'll get from there. But I just decided I wanted to be as comfortable as possible with you, especially since this is an hour. We're spending an hour together essentially. I'm spending it with your essence. You are spending it with my uh, voice. What would you call that? Like an imprint, residue, like my voice and face being recorded. It's not quite live, but it's something. So there are a few things I have, like, I wish you could see. I just have like all my stuff here. I also thought of when I was like, I'm just gonna do this in bed. I thought about when we lived together and how like my bed was like this center gathering point for everyone, and how we'd watch TV in there or hang out in there, or when we got the do you remember when we got the human sexuality textbook and we all looked at it in my room? Oh, fun times, fun times. So there's actually something I wanted to start with. I got this book yesterday for my sister, but I'm seriously like considering keeping it for myself. It's called Journey to the Heart, Melody Beatty. I don't know if you're familiar with her. You probably are, since you're coming from the therapy counseling background. She wrote Codependent No More, and she does. It's essentially a daily um, devotional. And so I wanted to read today's. Also, just a little interesting fun fact. I wanted to do this reading yesterday, Monday night. Uh, Girl, it just like out of my brain. I ended up reviewing embryology slides and falling asleep while staring at my computer at like 8 o'clock. So I was like, nothing else is happening tonight. And I thought, well, I can definitely make Tuesday evening work. And then, as it turns out, it's the it's the full moon and a lunar eclipse. So I wanted to read you something that it's this from an astrologer that I loosely follow. I wouldn't call her my teacher. I do have an astrology teacher. His name is Christopher Witecki. You've probably noticed that I share him a lot in the group. And that's because he really is very much a teacher, and has been one of mine for going on 2 years now. I've really been tuning into his methods and his approach, and he's very much like a life coach in the way that he talks about things. And so I've learned so much about self love and self care from him. It's just been like phenomenal. And I really think that a lot of the good things that have come into my life are because of the work I've been doing with him. So, um, but I just thought it was interesting that I'm always fascinated by when I allow the flow of things to happen, they happen, and really good ways. And doing a reading for you on the full moon, like really capturing that energy, is very special. But it's also a full moon in Capricorn. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Capricorn, but Capricorn is the very, well, I'll just read this. So this is from her name's Jennifer Racioppi, Racioppi. So she says, known as the buck moon, this significant full moon lunar eclipse packs a punch. Capricorn is a stoic sign that emphasizes work and is driven by a pragmatic desire to make improvements. To amplify this even more, the full moon conjoins Saturn and Pluto too on the south node, meaning we are being asked to rise and take responsibility for our actions. To do so, we have to take ownership of that which we are afraid to see. Eclipses bring the unexpected to the surface. This one shows us abuses and misuses of power, as well as addictions that need healing. Girl, like this whole paragraph, I was like, shit. Just because even of your work with addictions, it was like strange. It's not light and easy, but it has the potential to help us clear through so much if we remain conscious and proactive. So then the question she presents: consider the beliefs, behaviors, and patterns that may have served you, but you are now ready to change. Who are you becoming in the process? What has come full circle for you? What can you release this full moon? And how can you love even more deeply? And I would add on to that little addendum, how can you love yourself even more deeply? And I know I say that with, I say that knowing you and having known you for the good part of 2 decades. Because you and I are very similar in that we have had a history of having a hard time loving ourselves. And that is something that even as much as I practice loving myself, I still find that on a day-to-day basis, I have to put that foot forward and practice again and again, and sometimes more than usual, and but never less, right? So wanted to share that with you, that this is ended up being a very special day to do your reading, and I really hope, I'm already feeling very emotional. I think that there's something, I think there's 2 things. I think that you're very open. You have a very open energy, and I'm just, when I meditate on it, I'm really able to like pretty easily tap in. But I'm also sensitive to your journey, because even though the details of our lives have looked different, our interior journey has been very similar. And the things we've faced in our lives have been similar in nature. So I think it's a bit of empathy there going on there too. So I wanted to pull this up. Let's see, today is July 16th. And okay, I'm just going to read this to you. I hope you're okay with that. And then we'll, you ordered a reading and you didn't say what kind. Just kidding. Okay, she says, go a little further. That's the theme for this day. I arrived at Oregon's Willamette National Forest after dark. Suddenly I found myself at a fork in the road. To the right was a chained gate marked Foot Travelers Welcome. To the left was an open road marked Nature Sanctuary, authorized visitors only. I stared at both signs, then headed to the left. I didn't see anything that looked like lodging, and I began to feel uncomfortable. Like one of the unauthorized visitors the sign warned about. I backed the car out to the fork, turned around, and left. 2 hours later, I still hadn't found the retreat. I was tired and worried about running out of gas. I tried to remember what I'd been learning, that desperation attracts more desperation. I relaxed and visualized myself finding the retreat, being given a key to a room, and going to sleep in a bed. I visualized it until I could see the scene clearly in my mind. Before long, I found myself back at the fork. I mean no harm, I thought, so I'll just drive down that Nature Sanctuary road again, the one for authorized visitors only. I drove as far as I had been before, then decided to push ahead a bit more. I rounded the bend, and there it was, the parking lot, the night office, and a man who could give me a key to my room. Within 20 minutes, I was in bed for the evening. And then she has this in asterisks. Sometimes we need to go further than we thought we could. We need to go past our fear, past our uncertainty, past the bend we can't see beyond. If we stay on the course, give it that extra push, and go round the bend, we may find what we're looking for. So, she's setting some tone there for us. I want to add a little bit Girl, I have a feeling the thing is about readings for you. Uh, it's going to pack a punch, okay? This whole thing is going to probably be pretty intense for you. So, I want to encourage you to pause as necessary. Get up, stretch, cry. Get a drink of water. Drink lots of water. Also, keep a notebook handy. All right, your journal, something similar. Write down things as you go. Hit pause as much as you need. And one thing I like to tell people is when you go to write something down, don't worry about writing the exact thing I say down or read or share or whatever. Write down what you heard. All right? Because I find that that's the most powerful. I really feel that spirit works through both of us, works through me by what I share with you, but also works through you in what you actually hear and how you comprehend that. The ideas you get, the imagery, the sounds, the smells even. Tarot can be a very sensory experience when you just learn to tune into those things and note them. And what you're doing with your notes is you're really building a puzzle, and you're taking note of all the pieces that are kind of floating out here. You're just going, putting it down, okay. Sorry if you see anything. I don't have any underwear. I just got done I joined Orange Theory Fitness, and I just got done doing this really intense workout, and so I had to shower before I had my reading with you. Also, semi-protein shake. My lean hasn't come in the mail, so I've been stuck with a banana peanut butter, almond milk, and cacao powder smoothie. Okay. I know we worked with the archetype cards last time. I'd like to pick one just as a theme for the reading here. And I'll go into it a little bit. It's crazy how one really was like one. And spirits. I do ask. Just in this moment, even I asked if I should start with the archetype cards or the universe has your back cards, and it was like archetype cards. I'm like, 1 or 3, 1. So it must have a pretty powerful message. This one card that's getting ready. Oh. Interesting. Not what I was expecting. This one fell out though. Usually when it jumps out, we take that as a sign, especially when I was talking about spirit presenting one card and then it just fell out. So that must be the one. Poet. So as you'll remember, these have a light and a shadow attribute. The light attribute expresses soul insights in symbolic language. Shadow attribute turns a lyric gift to negative or destructive effect. So, we know, I don't know if you've been in contact with a poet that when they spoke, it really felt like they were unlocking the secrets to the universe. There's one, and Manic Pixie Dream Girl is, I think, the name of it. She kind of exposes this caricature that a lot of women in stories and movies that we watch in our media play out. It's kind of the idea of like the cute, helpless girl who's really quirky, and I'll list a couple of the characters. Natalie Portman in Garden State is one. And she even talks about how there's like, let me save you with this music. New Girl, Zooey Deschanel is like the prototypical Manic Pixie Dream Girl. Anyway, the whole poem goes through, and if I can remember, I'll find it and send it to you. She goes through the end, and she's like, when it gets to the end, I disappear because it was all about enhancing your story. And she's talking like to the males, like in this scenario, that these manic pixie dream girls are meant to essentially transform. That's their job. Their job is to transform the men in their lives. And anyway, I'll send that to you. It's really amazing. I remember like just being able to pick out so many of my exes, like who were like, man, this is totally how they expected me to be for them. My point of that though is when I heard that, when she did it in a slam poetry situation, it felt like, whoa, pew, 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 like things opening up, right? And I think it's interesting. It does say expresses soul insights. You know, there's this idea that the poet is able to have these incredibly deep understandings of the world around them and then communicate them in a way that's like fluid and pretty like a poem, but also completely relatable to people and helps them to understand those deeper like soul things that are going on. The shadow attribute turns a lyric gift to negative or destructive effect, and I can't help but think that that's like um a product of being disconnected from those soul secrets, you know. And it makes me wonder if there's like, if you're in almost a dry spell of connect lack, like where you're in a dry spell of connection to spirit, higher power, higher being, and maybe this is a time to really refresh your spirituality, to open up and be curious about the world around you. And you know, I think you're engaging with tarot, so I know that you're already a very open-minded person when it comes to that, but I think your spirit's even more curious than that. It wants to explore and play, and it may be things that you really never would have considered, and it may feel weird saying it out loud. um but I know for me, tarot was something I like circled for a long time, and it just took the right person to go to a tarot reading with me. And within weeks, I bought my own deck. And it happened to be, of course, the deck that the lady that did the tarot reading for me, like that I'd chosen with her. That was the one when I went to the store and I was like, oh, I think this is, oh my gosh, it's totally the same one. Um, so my point in that though is that a lot of times we become the shadow side. I think of the poet enters when we are no longer experiencing soul insights, and we miss that, especially if we have a prophetic nature, and I really believe that you do. It's honestly why you are at the top of your game in a lot of ways, why you are the leader that you are in this company, and why you're helping to pioneer and spearhead a lot of things, because you have a prophetic nature. People somehow unconsciously or consciously understand that you're in tune with the deeper soul secrets. And I think maybe where the rub is, that the feeling that I'm getting, the rub is that you haven't felt that connection in a while. And so just give yourself permission to play with spiritual things. One thing I would really recommend is go to a sound bath. This is something I've encountered in multiple cities, so I know it's not relegated to the Pacific. Well, it might be relegated to the Pacific Northwest, but I also have friends from Indy who do these things. Essentially, a sound bath is like usually at a yoga studio. You lay and you maybe do a guided meditation or something like that. And then the person who's leading it plays instruments that resound. So there's, singing bowls and maybe a Native American drum. These kind of things. Usually there's some singing. It just depends on who's leading it. But you're just laying there and you're essentially letting the sound wash over you and heal you. And girl, it can be really powerful, really, really powerful. So that's one thing to write down for yourself. Reconnect your spiritual self to the greater spirit world. Okay. And then I want to also draw a Universe Has Your Back card. And I know that you've done some of my Tarot Tuesdays when I do these. I really love these cards. I'd highly recommend grabbing this deck for yourself. You can probably get it pretty reasonably on Amazon Prime. Confession, it's Amazon Prime Day and I had a $10 credit. And I wanted to order a deck, so I got the Spirit Animal deck from the Wild Unknown. And then like a suggested deck popped up and it was only like $18 and I was like, yep. So, and my friend Beth, I don't think you've ever met her. She just started an online apothecary called Moon Horse Apothecary. And she's selling a deck on there called the Anima Mundi. And it means like the voice of the world. And it's gorgeous. So I have 3 new decks on my way. And I'm really excited. Like, speaking of like boredom and getting kind of bored, I have started to feel like restricted by the decks that I have and not really wanting to engage them. And I'm really excited for a new deck. So, all right, this one jumped out. All right, it's the moment I realign with love. Clear direction is presented to me. And so what I'm hearing here is align yourself with love. And maybe this has to do with the spiritual desert as well, is that it's a huge lack of love going on. Love for Katie. And love is our only way forward. Love is our guide and our map and our compass all in one. So it's going to seem strange when you're talking about direction and work together. But the reality is you have to start with loving yourself. And only then will you know what's right for you going forward. We have so much logic tied into making decisions around our career. And the reality is it's our heart that's the best one to consult, like no matter what. So your heart is the key. Love yourself, love yourself. Don't worry if you don't get the answer right away. That's not the point. The point is to love yourself. The answer is the bonus. Okay? All right. So I'm going to lay out a Celtic Cross spread. We're using the Wildwood Tarot tonight. I love these cards. I think I used them with you last time. They are very layered. They've got a lot of complex meanings to them, which I find very helpful because sometimes I don't get all that I need just from looking at the card, or just from the name of the card even. Like, I very much lean heavily into the visuals, but I also like that the Wildwood taps into like the cycles of the earth, so I can do that as well when I'm trying to gather more clarity. I also wanted to go back to the guidebook for the archetypes and see if the poet had anything that could help us. Okay, so here's what it says. The poet combines lyricism with sharp insight, finding beauty not only in the epic affairs of humanity, but also in everyday acts and objects. Also expresses wonder at the hidden joys and sorrows that we might otherwise overlook. Shadow poet turns gift for lyricism to negative effect, as in songs or poems written in support of evil causes. You don't have to be a published poet to have this as one of your 12 archetypes. Look for a lifelong need and ability to discover beauty in the people and things around you, and express it in a way that helps others see it too. All right. I'm going to shuffle just a little bit more, meditating on you as I do so, and just asking Spirit what messages would be good for you today. Okay, first 3 cards presented themselves to me. Gotta love that. So do the next 2. Kind of like giving the opportunity for Spirit here to draw the cards for me. That always feels really, there's just an extra bit of like, it's out of my hands, if that makes sense. All right. All right, let me see if I can show this to you. It's a little bit challenging here with just the surface that we're working with. There we go. Ooh, we got one more card up there. There we go. All right, so you're getting a little overview here. Okay, so there's a lot sticking out to me already. I want to pull up the Celtic Cross spread example so that I can look at that. Because there are sometimes, I forget what the ones on the side are sometimes. Okay. Okay, so we're going to start here on the center with the card that represents you as you are in the current moment. And we have 7, the Archer. And the Archer is a very grounded feeling card. It's 7 of the major arcana. There's this like laser focus. You know, the Archer is in the right stance. It's got the right tools, the right gear, laser focus on the target ahead of him or her. Let's see what the book says about this. The Archer stands at the spring equinox, March 21st. So there's something special about that time frame, which is like, gosh, that's so close to your anniversary. So it's actually, they're pointing out that the longbow is poised in an act of release. So there's almost this sense that like the hunt has taken place. Well, okay, let's even go back a little further. The preparation has taken place. The gathering of resources has taken place. The hunt has taken place. The moving into position has taken place. Now, the only thing that's left to do is release. And here's the thing about release. It's out of your control. Okay, but you have to trust that everything you've done up to this point is putting you in a place where, yes, it's out of your control once you release. So it does take a certain degree of trust and leaning into that trust. But there's also a lot that has gone into this, and you are pointing at the very thing you want to hit. And so while you are while you are learning to trust in that actual letting go, the reality is you've done everything you need to do. You can easily trust that you're going to hit the mark. You just have to let go. You just have to let go, because no one will be able to sustain this position forever. The arm will get tired. Your vision will start to blur. The legs are. The reality is, if you don't take it and make your move when you can and trust that that arrow is going to go where it needs to go, you will begin to tire. You will lose focus. You will lose perspective on the situation. And if you wait to act, you're actually going to miss the mark, because your aim will no longer be as sharp as it is at this very moment. Recent past, we have the Ten of Stones, which is home. And I just get the sense of like coming home to yourself. You've been doing a lot of work trying to make your being a hospitable place for yourself, and good job. I think that just goes to show that, given that the Archer is now where you are and the home is where you were in the past, that work mattered, and it's led up to something. Okay. And then the near future is the Page of Vessels, which is the otter. And the thing about the otter is that it's an animal that can traverse both land and water. Sorry, I need to move my legs. Bed sitting is not the most comfortable, it turns out, when it comes to doing something like this. So, just make sure I'm not sitting on anything important. All my cards are going cattywonk. Okay. It's an animal that can traverse both land and water, and what's really special about that is that, at least in the tarot, water symbolizes the spiritual or emotional or both of those realms, and land is the more tangible, like material world, things you can see, touch, taste, feel, the senses. And being able to move smoothly through both of those worlds has tremendous effect and power, to be really honest. And that's where you're headed. Okay, all this work and stuff that you're doing and aiming for and whatnot, that's what's coming out of it, is that you are moving toward this being that has the ability to traverse both the material world and the spiritual emotional plane as well, and be able to do that without much break or preparation. Like, the otter can just easily go from land into the water and back up onto the land again. And I think that over time you're going to start to see that you are able to do that as well, whether it's with yourself or with other people, or even with some of these decisions you're making, where you're able to both evaluate the material and the tangible, effects and consequences and whatnot, and then be able to just kind of immediately go into the spiritual emotional effects. And what's really good about that is that, that's really a state of balance. I would see that as a state of homeostasis, where the you're able to balance logic with emotion and with your spirituality, what you sense to be true, what you know in your intuitive body to be true. Okay. So the bridge or the barrier that overlays these, connecting the past to the present and the future. Just heard like a bell ring. So strange. Is the wheel. And this is number 10 in the major arcana. Um, as you can imagine, the wheel is very much like the idea of going full circle. It's there to remind us that um, things take time. A year is not just over because we want it to be. It's because it went the full direction of the wheel, and it went from this time this year all through the next 12 months to this time next year. And yeah, so there's just this overwhelming sense that you're in the cycle. You're in the process of coming toward this future. And all that you really need to know or understand is patience. Okay? Patience and trust. Patience for the process of things, and trust that you've done the work necessary. You can make a move if it's time and if you need to. And patience, when I say patience with the process, I don't necessarily mean that if you're feeling that you need to do something that that the cards are saying you should wait. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that even if you strike right now, you let that arrow go and it catches the thing. To use a hunting metaphor, let's say it catches a rabbit. Well, sorry, going to be kind of morbid. You have to wait for the rabbit to die. Then you have to field dress the rabbit. Then you take all the pieces of the rabbit and you cook them, or you prepare them, or you use them to make moccasins, right? All of this takes time. All of this is a process. So it's not necessarily that the waiting and the patience aspect means that you shouldn't make a move. That's not what that means. What it means is that make the move you know you need to make, and then trust that the time going forward is dictated by the process that move needs, that it needs for you, that you need from it, and that all the pieces that are working in tandem around you need as well. Okay, hope. In the hopes category, we have number 18, the moon on the water. And the fears category, we have the ace of vessels, the waters of life. So I'm going to go to the fears first because that seems a little more obvious to me, and we'll come back to the moon on water. The fear, with the waters of life showing up in the fears category, the sense that I get from that is the fear is that you're not going to have what you need. That somehow the well is going to dry up and you're not going to be one of these happy animals, either relaxing and swimming on the water or drinking it for sustenance. Somehow it's going to be different for you than everyone else. Somehow it's going to dry up. It's going to not materialize. It's going to be toxic. It's going to drown you. Any of those fears that come up. Again, the cards are just calling that out. Okay, this is an important space to use as a mirror to see, like, ooh, that hurts. What do I need to see more of here to better understand myself? Or maybe it's just like, whoa, that feels good. What is that? What do I need to understand here to continue growing and developing? Okay. And then with the hopes being the moon on water, I'd like to open that one up because you have 3 major arcana here, which means, as I suspected, this is a very intense reading. There's a lot that Spirit is trying to get across to you, to convey to you. And I think it might be really important if you do any kind of meditation to ask that question. What would you like me to be paying attention to? And because that's a question that focuses your perspective and also asks spirit a question, I have no doubt in my mind that you'll get an answer. Um, Again, we'll come back to patience with the process of things where you may get an answer, but it's not meant to be fulfilled in your life for another 3 years. Or you may get an answer and not be able to do anything about it. Maybe it includes someone that you have no control over, a relationship with, whatever. There's where your trust in the process comes in. Moon on the water. The moon on the water is placed at the womb of the wheel, the midwinter solstice in 21 December. The element is earth, and it is the gateway of the soul. It is the mystic still point where ideas and desires change from pure thought to objective reality. So I think that's it. That's the key. That's the hope. You're hoping for desires and ideas to change from pure thought to objective reality. In other words, you're really longing for the materialism of these ideas and thoughts that you've been having. And again, patience, let development happen. But also there's something to be said about the winter solstice being tied into this card. And I think that if you're able to kind of track how your year goes, I think you'll see a lot of growth and change and development happening between now and December 21st. In fact, I think on December 21st, you might look back and go, wow, I really manifested a lot of things in my life. And I think you definitely have the power and the potential to do that. The cards are very clear. You are focused and ready to fire. You just need patience, and you need to understand what it is you really want to connect to. So, moving along in the place where it's called how you approach the situation, we have the Woodward, and I love this guy. Again, another major arcana, number 11. Let's see, you have 10, 11, 7, 10, 11, 18, 19. Interesting. Okay. The thing I love about the Woodward is he's so prepared and pragmatic, and yet he kind of has, he looks like he has a singing bowl in his right hand. So there's this like, he's not afraid to be woo-woo. Like he's not afraid to acknowledge that there are what's the word I'm looking for? Rituals and connections he likes to make in his spiritual life and in his practice. And yet he's doing it in this like very like formidable fashion. Like, I will take this on. And so he has both. And then he, of course, he has his little links, or I forget what it's called. Let me look it up real quick. This cat that's in the picture with him. Sometimes the animals in these pictures are just as important. He holds, let's see, a bloodied spear in one hand and the gift of giving, intoxication, and compassion in the other. Lynx. It is a lynx. I was trying to see what the cat represented, but I don't have it. So this is your approach, though. Very practical, very pragmatic. And yet still carrying the spiritual tools that you've learned in your journey alongside of you to help buoy you in the times when you feel alone or lost. And then, but also to help connect you to spirit in the higher world, in the higher higher vibration spaces. The next position is the environment, and we have number 19 of the major arcana, the Sun of Life. And what I'm seeing is that your environment's optimal, okay? You need only to stand tall, open your chest, your heart, receive this light, and then also be willing to just let the light shine from you. It's a positive environment. It's a very positive environment. It's a very empowering, uplifting environment. And I think it may be an environment that you're not quite used to. And so it's taking some time to settle in and to trust, maybe. Trust is a word. What's going on? What you need to know, we have the Four of Vessels, boredom. So here's what comes up to me when I see this card. I worked with a mom in Eugene, and her husband was great, but they didn't see eye to eye on how to do anything, including parenting. So her methods were a little bit less, they were definitely less structured, a little bit more playful at times, a little bit more psychosocial, like you name it. But one thing she told me I thought was really fascinating, and this came up even as I was processing my trauma with my dad. When kids say they're bored, they're trying to say that they really want connection with you. And so it'd be better if, instead of punishing them for being bored, you sat down and read a book with them. That would satisfy what they're saying. So what you need to know, well, I would recommend that you observe times of boredom, where you are, what you're doing, and who's around. And see if it's not a lack of connection to yourself or even a lack of connection to those around you. Okay? Do a little bit of playful analysis here, just so that you can figure out what some of these messages mean. All right, the resolution or the final outcome. We have Nine of Stones, tradition. Tradition. So what I love about this card is that it's pretty trippy. It's actually one of the very few cards where the sun is out, even though it looks like sunset. And it's called tradition, but there's this sense that you make the tradition what you want. And that was one thing I was going to suggest, is that you have some spaces where you can pull back completely and not, just make some dinner, hang out, or whatever. You can pull back completely from your day-to-day job, day-to-day life. So there's kind of this dichotomy where what I see is that it's encouraging you to move forward. And yet there's this tradition, and it's like, well, what does the tradition ask of me? And this might be a really good place to ask that question anyway. What is the tradition of my people or my community or my housemates or whatever? What's the tradition that they hold on to that they also expect I will hold on to? And is this something that serves me anymore? So yeah, beware of states of boredom. I hope that story made sense, but beware of states of boredom, because they may mean that you're just disconnected from either yourself or those around you. Okay. I'm just looking to see if there's anything else that's sticking out. I think I'll look up the Sun of Life, 19 in the Major Arcana. The blessing of ancient sunlight shines within the figure's heart. Around the image, flowers burst into blossoms, energized by the healing rays of the sun. And this was in the your environment category. So this is the kind of environment you're in. I know you've mentioned like having a really solid community with Young Living, and I think maybe that plays a part in it. Um, and that empowerment piece, it's super important. On a more complex level of human consciousness, the Sun of Life represents the next step into awareness of the universal mind. After the initial movement from the potential still point of the moon, the sun beckons, blah, blah, blah. A powerful symbol of light and fertility, the Sun of Life heralds a season blessed with joyous enlightenment, robust health, and emotional harmony. So, in other words, if you're not experiencing those things, joyous enlightenment, robust health, and emotional harmony, um, it's okay to check into that. How how do I expand myself so that I can embrace the opposite of those things? Coming back to this one, the thought just came to mind. It's time to form new traditions. Um, so if you're in any kind of space where that's possible, play with it. Maybe take suggestions from your family. What kind of traditions they'd like to see being honored? Because tradition means nothing if it's not something we do with other people. The whole point of it being a tradition is that it's shared amongst many people in this group. So ask your family for input. What kind of traditions would they like to help shape and share? All right, one more card here. All right, we have the Knight of Arrows, which is the hawk. Very much about vision, kind of that archer again. We call it a hawk's eye view for a reason. It's like really zeroing in. And then we have the Seven of Bows, which means clearance. And the Knight of Bows, which is the little fox, the little smiley fox. All right. And the clearance one I think is interesting because it comes back to that astrologer I read you at the beginning and how the full moon eclipse that we're experiencing today is very much about like bringing things to the surface and clearing them out, bringing to the surface, clearing them out, and so it's saying it to you as well. The Knight of Bows, this little fox. Pay attention to the people you meet in the next 24 to 48 hours. I think it's very possible that you encounter a figure who is fox-like in nature. And that person is likely going to be meaningful to you in some way. So don't hesitate to give them your name and ask them about themselves. Like that will reveal that you are open to new things coming in and that you're eager to make those connections. Okay. I'm kind of feeling like we're done. There's not many cards here there's not any more cards that want to be drawn. We're a few minutes short, so I'm more than open to you sharing questions or concerns you might have, and I'll happily answer those. If there's anything that's beyond my scope, which is really just knowing the cards and knowing you, those are good questions to bring into your meditation time, to speak with your higher power about, with the universe, spirit, etc. All right, darling. So this was a lot. I hope that it brought some clarity to the situation you discussed with me about moving and going back to Indiana. And, those kinds of specifics are very hard to address. But I think loving yourself, trusting that you're aiming for the right thing, and being, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Loving yourself is going to be really huge through this process. So just make sure that's on your radar. And thank you for letting me share. Please, if you have anyone you know who would like a reading, I would love to share with them as well. Many blessings to you, sister. Namaste.